Welcome this evening to the 3.23.1a PTU, open PTU technically, available to everybody on the US server cluster, and of course any backer can jump on the US server cluster and get on that. So let's go into exactly why this exists, and namely there's a lot of fixes to the Retaliator. There's been some other missile balance changes where they fiddled with the overall missile capabilities. And in particular, just bottom line up front, torpedoes are extremely, extremely slow now. And the Firebird's missiles, not torpedoes, but missiles, have been doubled in capacity. And there have been some change states, like the fuel amounts on the missiles has been lessened, and the speed of them has changed dramatically. But the Torps especially are bad. And I don't even need to go anywhere to show you this. So on board this ship, actually, before I go send one of these off into the cosmos, let's take a peek back here real quick. There's been some work on the lighting, it looks like. And also, you will note that the bomb bay doors open on this, because I jumped out of the seat to show you this before the Torps go flying out elsewhere. The Torps are back in with their spindles in the front. And then if we go to the back, in the rear module, I don't know why that door is locked open. I guess we'll find out if we have a stowaway real quick. There's the bomb bay for the second set of torpedoes. So as a reminder, there's 4 in the front module and there's 2 in the back. The 2 in the back do not have spindles, rather they're single suspended from above. And then as a reminder, on the cargo module, it replaces this with a single set elevator with 4 posts. I wish it was more monolithic in a sense where it would be a single side, or I guess the better word is asymmetrical, with 2 posts instead of that, or a single post ideally. That just looks like it, strong post, so that way you can fit more ground vehicles in here and more easy access to cargo, especially with all the clearance issues like the turret and the landing gears. But this is what we're dealing with here. So this is what's going on in the 3.23.1a patch, and it's highly likely that some of these changes will be making their way over to our friends, everyone in 3.23.2. Some of these changes are being fiddled with. The hangar changes are not in, but this, I believe, is a pretty critical change, and this is right after, of course, ILW, where many people bought Retaliators, or at the very least Retaliator modules, for their Retaliators. And some of the changes, such as lighting and such, are interesting. Again, let's take a look at the emergency lighting just to kind of show. So the LEDs are still in that I complimented in the previous one and such. But in general, it seems like the lighting stance of the main lighting, not the auxiliary, not the emergency, is looking quite bright, which is welcome. Now, one of the things I wanted to note, though, is that the weapon delivery system, and in the design that I had where it was a cargo in the back, torpedoes in the front, would also be implicated in this, so I kind of felt obligated to make a video, even if I was, on the fence about it. They're really slow. So what's going on is if people boost, they can go faster than a torpedo. So let's take a look. That's the torpedo back there with its warning that it's coming. And I'm going to pull up just so I'm not in the line of the fire. And then let it whiz by. Hopefully. So what I think's going on here is I think that the torpedoes are being adjusted. And I do believe they will be getting a slow pass. I believe that they're testing the Retaliator, they're testing the Polaris, and they're not liking what they're seeing. As a reminder, the Polaris was actually equipped with size 9s when people took a peek inside the unfinished ship during ILW. As a reminder, I just boosted past where I fired this thing. There's no trickery or anything. It literally is that slow. I'll probably be able to catch up to it right here. Let me see if I can. But, yeah, it's not looking very good for the torpedoes right now. And that's a size 9 Argos that I'm absolutely blowing past with my afterburn, with my thrust. So, actually, the gravitational effects might start impacting this, and it might start coming down slightly. I gotta roll. I'll probably have to roll right or left. It's like the Prometheus movie scene. just go either direction. Stop running where it's rolling. But anyway, basically, these torpedoes are right now not very good. Against PvE content, like hammerheads and such, you can still use them. I do not expect them to be this slow when it gets to 3.23.3 and pushing beyond that. So 3.2 and 3.2, what I'm guessing will be 3.23.3 eventually. So like I'm thinking of the rest of this patch cycle if there is 2 different major patches. I do not think they're going to be this slow, but I do think they will have a pass where they become slower than they are currently in live. And this is the evidence right here. It is possible that when they went to tune the Firebirds missiles to make them track better, but have like a shorter range and then also give them double the amount of missiles and all this stuff, playing games where what I heard from a Firebird owner was they literally put two missiles in each tube. So it's like the first set fire and then the second set start firing as your countdown timers are done for each shot. So it's possible that these things got super slow because they tweaked something in there, the motors or something in the missiles. Maybe it's shared in the torpedoes, even though they're size 9s. Additionally, these size 9s might have got messed up when it came to Polaris testing. So the Polaris carries the size 9s as a test subject. It's possible that these are the speed that a size 10 torpedo is going to go. And, I mean, remember, the bigger the torpedo, the more hit points it should have at the very least, if not armor or some other measures. The more sensor strength it has, things like that they've talked about in the past. Whether they're going to commit to that, I don't know. So it's going to be hard to jam these things. It's going to be harder to PDS them away the bigger and bigger they go. Well, if they're getting super big and strong, then in theory, you will need, well, not theory, but fact, you will need to slow them down. Otherwise, they're going to be unstoppable killing machines that just have no hard counter. And if SC's anything, it's a place where counters to one thing do another. And these vehicles should be able to do their job, but not just be like insta I win buttons. So it's possible that this is the speed that the size 10s are going to be going when they're fired out of the four tubes that are sitting in the Polaris. So that's another thought I have. But these are really, really, really slow. So if this is the case, you would need to strategize and think about that and go, okay, I'm going to have to get way closer than I intended previously. Using the capital class radar on the Polaris, getting into position or having a scout on position, ideally both, and coordinating, getting in. There's a wounded Idris, there's a wounded Kraken, a wounded Jav even. You get in, fire your Torps way closer than you anticipated, and then get the heck off the grid and then come back or something like that, or fire 2 volleys, then leave and come back. But these are, I mean, really slow. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see. Now, we have seen a preview of what the size 10s look like, but no one has actually. That one just ran out of fuel over there. That's what that flare out looked like. They look like mini suns when they're moving. But they do eventually run out of fuel. So the thought is, if these are size 10 placeholders and they're just testing the amount of distance they can go, the speed they're going to go, and then they'll add the damage, they'll add the model later. I think it's going to rearrange a lot of people's priorities on ships, and I think it's going to really change the concept of what the Polaris is. in the recent discussion when they brought up the Polaris to show the progress during ILW, and let's be honest, help sell some Polarises, nothing wrong with that, they shed some light on basically they were going to increase the gun tier of the Polaris. In particular, they're like, so it can be more on, when it's on grid, when they're like with larger ships like Capitals and such, and you're like, makes you pause for a moment and go, wait, the Polaris isn't meant to stand toe-to-toe with other cap ships. But if their torps fire this slow, it's possible that you would want to move the entire, in this case, the Retaliator, let's just pretend this is the Polaris, you would want to get within a significant distance. You would want to close the distance and then fire these things. So use up all your boost, come in at a reasonable range that's near friendlies, ideally screening vessels, break the line so you get past the screening vessels, so you blow past them, and then all of a sudden, you're with shields up, of course, and then when you run out of boost, you fire your payload. So I think that would make the most sense in a weird way. I think that's honestly the way to go here, where you basically have like a ramp up to your fighting. You use the boost, you fire off your torps, and you send a volley happily on its way. In this case of this, I mean, you can see the cooldown timer of these size 9s that I'm just blowing through. And imagine if these were size 10s, even at this slower speed, and let's say there was another Polaris next to you on a large fleet fight, if we ever get to that capacity in a server or in that specific, instanced or not, I really don't care. I'm not going to weigh in on that right now. But let's just say you had all of these, and these were size 10s with significant amount of hit points. Even though they're moving slowly, you might be able to overwhelm PDSs and at least get some of the damage in. And then once you need to reload, you would pull back to friendly lines and get back behind all that grid. As soon as you blew everything out, you get back to where the screening vessels are and start planning out, your team's reloading and such inside your crew. So I think that might be an opportunity, but this is all theory crafting, because we're just trying to see based on what we're seeing here. Either CIG unintentionally set the speeds up, maybe when they tweaked everything for the Firebird. This is me recapping, by the way. Or this is the intentional, test models for the size 10 torpedoes for the Polaris. This is the intentional speed, the fuel, the distance, those type of things. Not the damage. Not the model. Not the hit points. But everything else. So that kind of brings up an interesting thought, one way or the other. I don't know. So what do you think in the comments? Let me know. Or, I'm always available to talk on Discord and such. And, yeah, it's been a wild thing. I'm looking forward to 3.23.2. I really want to get testing on it as soon as possible. I know it's supposed to go to Evo, is the rumors I've been hearing. But it keeps getting pushed back. And, yeah, they're testing, this .1a patch in the Open PTU, which is, slating some of that interest, and certainly for people that enjoy testing, like many of us, that's welcome. But really, we want those hangars to test. We want to test the new cargo mechanics, some of the other things, if the item kiosks make it or not. It'll be interesting to see, what surprises as well are in that patch cycle. But in general, I just want my hangars back. I can remember so many times just hanging out in the early days inside the hangar module and just enjoying myself, having a good time, checking out my ships, getting my PTV stuck under the Retaliator's wing, the original Retaliator design wing. And I think there's something to be said about simplicity and taking everything and putting it in a single hangar that's yours, even if it's not a fancy Revel in York one or a Selfland, whatever ones that you end up with, or you choose to rent or whatever. But there's something to be said about just being able to just have a hanger of one simple kind that you can throw on that's just, you can leave stuff and come back and it's still there. That's going to be really interesting, especially, for example, like testing this Retaliator. If the torpedoes yet again are not being reloaded, being able to just have a pile of torpedoes, having the size 9s just ready to slap in, and I can just do it myself and just get it done with. In the future, that's kind of where I see it going, and the first step is the .2 patch. So it's a big change for me that's necessary. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. That's kind of what I'm dealing with at the moment. I don't have a Firebird, by the way. I was looking forward to if they were going to offer a Firebird, let's call it Raven Firebird, or whatever, a unique name that wanted to be offered. I really thought they were going to do something like that. And then we got this missile boat thing that I have no interest in. It's a shame. If it was a if it was a gunboat or an ECM boat instead of having the actual EMP system, I might have been interested. But right now, missiles are not ideal, and Torps, as you see, are currently being tweaked or worked on or bugged. So we'll see later on in the patch cycle if they recover. I'm sure they will, but right now, especially torpedoes are extraordinarily slow. You can outrun them in basically every ship in the game, including haulers. Alright, that's going to do it for me right now. Thank you to my long-term subscribers. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so, and have a wonderful night. Couldn't help it, but I think some folks are really into this type of stuff. If you were actually curious about the spindles without torpedoes on them, as I was, this is how they look. It's funny. There's probably weeks of work that went into the animations and the cycling and all the fun stuff that goes into spinning this to make the two different torpedoes. One fires, then the whole thing spins, and the racking of the other one comes out to fire the other one. And then when they're done, I'm walking into the other rack. Then when they're done, the racks all have to be crunched back up. One folded up, and the other one folds up, and then this is how it looks. And no one ever admires it. There's probably weeks of work by a few different teams going into this to think through how this connects, how this collapses, the animations of this process. So if somebody just happens to be standing at that huge window, they see this happen. And then this is the steady state of it, the room empty of missiles with the torpedo module inside. I thought that was quite interesting. And then the back one has the same situation going on. And no, the engineering station does not work still. I don't know why. You can see the relays are still working. So if you grab it, that's right there, a fuse, and then you can see that nice little LED light that makes you have to do it that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it. There we go. So what you do is you hold down F and you click. And then you close it so that way a newbie doesn't accidentally grab the fuse. And mess things up in the engineering section. Here's the empty room in the back. Note the same collapsible system. And honestly, I didn't even notice this before. This real low res, but very straightforward Aegis logo there for the Retaliator. That's pretty cool, actually. So, yeah, same collapsible racks on a single rail in this case. And honestly, I wish the cargo considered using these same type of rails in the back, and there was like a tractor beam gantry on just one side. So when this opened up, maybe this is me spitballing here, but like on the Banu Merchantman, there's going to be grids that they've shown animated and everything else, and it's going through the pipeline already, where most of the pipeline, that's anyway, the panel goes to the ground and then uses gravlev assist to bring it back up. It would be really interesting to see a panel that's just no supports at all, and then it uses the large tractor beam right here as a double purpose. It can be deployed off the rail. The rail comes when this is open, it comes down, and then the remote tractor beam is right in there. Put a remote tractor beam station inside, and well, it has to be inside the module. So that to probably be right here or something like that. See, this gets complicated quick, but ideally, like, not on the elevator. And then once that goes down, you can pile it up. Remember, the tractor beam is right below where the ship starts, and then the tractor beam turns straight down when you go to close, and it pulls the grid back up. That would be pretty cool to see, like a dual-purpose tractor beam. And then probably put the station like right here. Slightly reduce the size of this. Make the module where this is an insert, but the actual door, the piece that free moves, is only like this big instead of this big. And then you would have a little station right here. I doubt that would ever happen, especially because, let alone AI pathing, it would probably have to be here, and then it would have to be bigger, and then it would take away even more space in here. So, yeah, but still, thinking outside the module. Anyway, the ship by itself is solid. I think that in general, this Torp thing is I believe it's a test for the Polaris, or it's a bug, one or the other. I'm going with 60% test for the Polaris, 40% test for the bug that was caused by them adjusting the Firebird's missiles to try to make it work better, because its missiles are atrocious right now for combat, and that ship is basically relying on the missiles for kills. So it's kind of really, really stuck. It's a shame, but either way, the Retaliator suffers from the testing of one ship or trying to make the other ship work. That being said, this is the PTU. Anyway, this is a bit of an overtime thing. Thanks for sticking around for this if you did. And yeah, happy upcoming Alien Week. It's always something. It's always an adventure, no matter what part of the year. And I think now more than ever, it is a marathon, not a race. It's not a sprint. You know, it's not like a track and field type event. It's a long distance marathon across rocky terrain. And if you're a Retaliator owner, I would not be worried right now. I don't believe these Torp changes are going to stay on the size 9s. I may eat my words, but there's a very small chance I will, based on how I feel right now. You are getting indirectly affected by one or the other. I hope I'm right too, because I really don't want to see the Retaliator and the Eclipse, by the way, get impacted so much by the size 9 changes. All right, for real this time, I'm out. Have a good evening. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so, and thank you to my long-term subscribers. It means a lot to me. Thank you.